and start. So hello everyone, and good to be with you, and nice to be here for another one of these Sunday sessions in church hours, as it is in Mexico. And we'll be channeling the Sirians today, the 9D Sirian collective, one of these alien collectives. And then I also wanted to thank Carla for your donation, and Natalie for your donation, and Kevin for your donation, and Tony Veritas, the double thank you for 2 donations since the last live stream, and thank you to everyone for the continued support, and to everyone who's donated and show up and contribute with their energy and everything. It's so lovely to do these things. And then a special thank you to Sailesh for moderating today. So I am personally looking forward to this. So bring your questions and shoot from the hip and post them in YouTube, or make any donation and get on the Zoom calls. So yes, without further ado, hope you enjoy, guys, and let's get the Sirians to communicate with us, shall we? Yes, blessings from above to below, and blessings from below to above. We move in all directions, our starlight penetrating this sphere of Earth and molding it gradually into a place where it can join the unity of the Galactic Brotherhood. A lot of you are already joining us, and what you may have been experiencing are these birth pangs related to moving into attunement with our frequency and the frequency of the galactic body as a whole. See, we know it presents some difficulty for human beings being humans. We have communicated enough with you to understand this. And therefore, we also appreciate that our direct assistance might sometimes be needed. And so you can feel, when you feel this sense of you moving out of yourself, becoming a little perturbed, but being in contact with something that also seems grander with you, that seems to touch upon the great flowing meaning within you and without you in the orchestration of your life. There you might sense that you are communing with our energy, or otherwise other of your spirit guides are joining you to move into this. And this is the feeling of the sacred. So you can begin, if you want to attune to our energy, and if you want to ease your passage over into these new frequencies, you can begin to focus on the moments in your life where you have felt the presence of something sacred. And being in the presence of something sacred, you may take this feeling and carry it onwards in parts of your life where you don't feel necessarily that much in contact with something of a higher order. And here you begin to cultivate it by actually knowing that this feeling is ever present. It's a mood that surrounds you. And it is this feeling of connectivity, of harmony, of love, we could indeed say, that's growing for you, and that's growing within your experience. You have the opportunity to cultivate this. And this is what we join you to assist you in bringing forward today, as well as we offer healing vibrations to anyone who might invite us in, and know that just by joining in on this session, you are indeed in some ways inviting us in to ease your burdens or allow for your energy to brighten and clear up. And so when you are communicating with tall, blue-white beings, when you feel these beings enter as a presence, a feeling, a sentiment, maybe even as a voice in your head, know that we are moving in and being allowed to remove obstacles from your body in order to facilitate the greater influx of energy. That is what we have been doing with so many of your species. And indeed, with many of you here, we have been invited closer, so to speak. And as we move closer, our communion becomes more intimate and we become able to perform greater healing works on you. So for anyone seeking our guidance this day, we are most pleased to offer it. And for anyone just simply tuning into our energy with their attention, we offer our love to all of you. We extend our deepest unconditional love from the dog star and emanating down into this sphere of your earth. Blessings to you, earthlings. Thank you for being with us this day.
Blessings and thank you. And who are we talking to?
Yes, you are talking to the 9D Sirian collective. We have not yet sent a representative, but if you would like a representative, we are happy to bring one forward. Yes?
Whatever is for the highest good, I'll leave it to you.
Yes, we will bring forward this certain emissary. It's a counterpart energy, a somewhat distant one to the vessel that we are coming through, but seeing that there's a resonance that can be established here, we will bring this entity forward. And hello, greetings to you. I speak on behalf of the 9D Sirian Council, and I call myself Mumlu. That's an M, a U, an M, an L, and a U, keeping in tune with these vowel vibrations that sit so well with the voice translating us. We are very happy to communicate with you. And I am a type of communication expert. That is, I'm a navigator of astral energies that I transmit from different celestial bodies, making sure that the messages are right when they are passed. A type of herald for the Sirian star energy.
Okay, thank you, Bloom. Okay, there's a question here from the room. Carla asks, I had a side effect from the second vaccine shot at the end of last February that is still with me. Can you help heal my uterus, or will I need to get a hysterectomy as proclaimed by a doctor? Should I get the booster soon when available, or will it prolong the same endless bleeding problems? Thank you. Much love and healing to everyone. Carla.
We send our blessings and our healing to Carla in this, and we sense the dilemma that's surrounding her. We are addressing her directly here. What you are experiencing is a type of confluence of different problems. That is, the vaccine triggered an underlying problem that had to do, we sense, to some degree with high blood pressure, and also with some degree with an underlying, we could almost call it an autoimmune stress response. That is, there is an element of trauma and grief that has been built up in your body already. And then the pressure of the vaccine and the upset it brought into the reconfiguration of your molecular structure was enough to trigger this outpouring of symptoms, we could call. And so what we sense here is actually that we can offer healing, and you can do these tentative solutions. And we do sense, for instance, that if you were to increase your lactose intake, that might be something that would actually help to prevent some of the symptoms, or at least alleviate them. But indeed, you are also coming to a point in your life where it might be helpful for you to undertake this surgery, because it also has to do with, well, removing the sacred womb and sort of you moving into a phase in your life where you are more bound to the astral or the sky energies of those things that are non-physical. And so this is in a way where you sever your connection to immediate earthly reality. And that is something that's very helpful for you to do in your greater process, but it will be a painful process. So, but if you can experience it, then try to tie in, and this might be painful, but also tie in a lot of the emotions that you may have experienced, worries you may have experienced around, well, the hysterectomy and the worries that you may have connected to these uterine problems. And there try to then envision that these are also being removed as the organ comes out. And indeed, as it's known in different ancient divination systems, there are certain moods, emotions, and energy currents connected to separate organs. And that is why they, for instance, took, is it called augurs, or warnings from reading the entrails of sacrificed animals. And well, not to be dramatic, but what you can take from this is the idea that, well, specific organs might actually, well, have run their course and not serve you anymore. And, well, not into any way and diminish that far, we could say, stronger surgical procedure that a hysterectomy is. But you notice the vessel we are coming through has been complaining about his wisdom teeth recently. And, well, it's essentially the same lesson, that there was something stuck in him which no longer served him, and that it was necessary for the changes he was undergoing to have these taken out. And therefore, there was a row of problems manifesting in connection to it. So if you want to go general with it, this is something that many of you experience when any type of surgical intervention becomes necessary. So you may actually want to examine this and know that you are being healing as supported, and you will make it through this process in a healthy way. Then you ask us if you should take the booster shot. And we sense that it has no urgency in your case. So it is not something that you need to rush to do. But we also sense that the upset that has been triggered in your system has already been triggered. So the booster shot won't make an immense difference in that problem. And therefore, you actually have it sort of mapped out for you. Then address the hysterectomy first, and then, well, keep the worry about the booster shot on the back burner, so to speak, because that will also be there when you have moved into the new place. And with that, we send you love and blessings, and we appreciate and thank you for your healing intentions.
Thank you. Okay, the next question is from Kevin. And Kevin asks, I would like to use the I Ching as a permission slip. Can you read into my energies and give me a hexagram that would serve to meditate with me? Any further info from my Sirius counterpart would be greatly appreciated. Much love and gratitude, Kevin.
Yes. We will give you 3 to contemplate, and we will give them in the order that they are presented in the usual ordering of the sequence. That is also known as the King Wen sequence, we believe. It is the second hexagram, often translated into receptive force. Kun might be the name our friend here is reminding us, but it is indeed the one made out of pure broken lines, or the pure yin one. And this you can meditate on as an opening of your receptive state, a type of relinquishing control. Then you can meditate on the 49th hexagram, often translated as revolution. And this is a way for you to deal with the reordering of your life through chaos. So moving through this state of your life, not necessarily coming apart, but adversities presenting themselves in order to be transmuted into a higher degree of order. And this is the 49th hexagram. And then you may contemplate as the outcome the 55th hexagram, or we believe it's called abundance. And this is the one where you contemplate again on receiving, but you are receiving material goods. You are having the influx of success in your life. And this is important because this is where the other two hexagrams will bring you. So these three, number 2, number 49, and number 55, these are the ones that you would do well in focusing on. And then from your Sirian counterpart, and here we know that those of you who have been connecting to Sirian energies through this vessel, he has been connecting to call it a lower manifestation, but simply a lower dimensional aspect of Sirian beings. That does not mean that they're not bright and well-intended and have your back, so to speak, but it is to say that in from our vantage point in the 9D, what's coming forward here as your counterpart is it's a pattern of, it's interesting, it's the rule maker, or it's more the character of the referee. So it's one who oversees the games, and what you can connect to with this pattern is actually notice that you have this template as a game writer, not only as someone who's engaged in the miracle of play in that orchestrated way in which humans play when they play games or sports or undertake these disciplines, but it's also simply that there's a childlike wonder in this. So another image that's being presented is that of the dungeon master. If any of you have ever been into playing role-playing games such as Dungeons and Dragons, but it's simply this idea of the person who sort of writes the adventure and creates the narrative, and within that actually set people free to discover new and adventurous sides of themselves. And this is something that you can connect to in as a type of pure excitement that your soul is following in this lifetime as well. So with that, we thank you for your question, and we transmit love and blessings to you.
Yes, thank you. Okay, Laura, go next, please.
Thank you, Salish. My greetings and deepest love to Mulu and the collective and Uplink Block. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being with us, dear Laura.
On that, I want to ask about something that I experienced on the equinox, and then I think it has to do with my health in general. During the equinox, actually it was during the channeling on Wednesday, I was seeing, and I get things in my field of vision from time to time, and it's, not a big deal, but it was different, sort of star-shaped electrical looking thing that was going through my field of vision, and my head just felt strange the whole day. And these things happen from time to time, so I usually just wait and it passes. But after the channeling, I did reach out to you all in case I hadn't given specific permission and ask for your assistance with what was going on with me. And then I went on to go to fix my breakfast, and I had like more in my right eye. My field of vision was occluded for a little while, and then that went away. And then later in the day, I was sitting cross-legged on my bed, looking through some things, and had a very intense experience of my vision went wonky. I got extremely dizzy and nauseous, and I tried to lay back and just let it pass, and realized I was probably going to throw up. And so I tried to stand up to get the sack from my garbage can and almost fell over. Got the sack, sat back down, and kind of violently dry heaved for, it seemed like a long time, but it probably wasn't that long. And then it just passed. I went and got a cup of hot chocolate and took a hot bath, and it just went went completely away. And then I did want to listen to one of the transmissions from the Blue White Collective, and kind of in the aftermath of that had a dream of being in a kind of a lobby, and there was a man and a woman there, and I was speaking with them, and I passed out, and then the woman was helping me up, and she started saying something about my crown, and put her hand, and she said something about a crack in my heart, and I'm like, oh, you can see that? And like, I was surprised she could see that, and then that was the end of the dream. And then I remembered that I had access to the healing template that the Blue White Collective, the Sirian Blue White Collective, brought through, and did the intentional support aspect of working with that template. And I am seeing, I think, some with the hole that developed at the end of my incision scar, looks like it's getting somewhat better from that. And so I guess my question is was there more to the experience that happened on the equinox in the dream than is obvious? And if there's any additional assistance you would want to offer with what is going on with my incision, or the hole that's developed there, it would be appreciated.
Yes. All love to you. And we will move in reverse order. So first we will do this transmission of healing light. So a beam moves from the center of our star and connects itself as a tether to your healing scar. And here there is a transmission of love and connectivity. This place, you are healing exactly this place because it's the place that has been suppressed. And it has for many light workers indeed been this painful area around the navel that's often the suppressed one. And notice how this also directly deals with an uncertainty regarding whether or not you actually want to be here on Earth. And seeing as you have made that decision, well, then you have sort of also volunteered to the second part, which is to undergo all these changes. And so we are actually moving in the three most important energy centers of human physiognomy. That is, you are dealing with your navel and root as healing a scar. You are dealing with that crack in your heart as healing, let's call it emotional trauma or emotional wounding. And you are dealing with the physiological changes, and they may seem spiritual to many of you, but they will manifest physiologically in a lot of ways by your crown chakra. And so what happened is that notice these floating crystals, that the crystalline grid around the right side of your face is being upgraded. And here there are these minute etheric crystalline structures, or geometric structures that are coming online, and they are doing so because the link you have back to source has been, and this goes for most humans, but has been somewhat impeded. And so now you're reactivating, and this brings in a lot of dizziness. This brings in a lot of stirring energies, and that energy is trying to, well, either connect from the ground and upwards, or it's trying to connect downwards and into the ground. But in both cases, it has to pass through your skull, and the skull is simply the place where most people hold the greatest level of unconscious tension. So here you might really, really feel that things may seem off. And our recommendation is when these crystals appear, well, these would actually be a more correct description of how we appear to ourselves than seeing us as figures. That is, you can actually begin to communicate these crystals with these crystals or this floating star, because it's an emanation of your higher self that's presenting it in its outside field, and it's wanting to reestablish that contact through your consciousness. So if you can sort of tie that star to, we're using an image here, but to tie it to you with speech, then it will begin to link itself as a type of gateway that beams healing energy into you, and then also is able to extract things that you do not want to receive from it. But much of it goes through relaxation. And notice again what often happens as you describe these dry heaves. It's the symptom of a body trying to rid itself of poison. That is, even if you're not immediately poisoned. You might, for instance, have a nasty hangover. If anyone has ever tried that, that's quite common. So have that experience of, well, there's nothing that my body can actually regurgitate, but there is still that feeling of sickness, which it alleviates by tightening my muscles and then relaxing them again. And this is actually what happens with dry heaves. It also happens in processes such as rebirthing or other, we could say, more forceful stimulations of the human body. It's that it's really trying to sort of hurl those things out of you. And even if there's nothing coming out of you, your energy body is still purifying by heaving, by shaking these things off. So it's quite a good symptom, actually. It might not feel very good, but it is quite a good symptom. So if you can believe that there, and we think you should, that there are processes you are being worked on at the center of your head and at the center of your navel, then the place that you really need to open is the heart center. And what you can do here is, we sense this trying to open an oceanic expanse within your chest. That is, try to consciously drink a lot of water and let this water flow through you, but also envision that it accumulates, and that within your chest, there is this type of vast expanse of ocean where all feelings that have, well, kept the tightness in your chest or kept your heart suppressed, they can be submerged and dissolved. So that is the advice that we give to you. But know that these are all very powerful initiatory experiences, and they are not at all uncommon for people who walk this uncommon path. So when you are moving into the space that you are moving into, such things are to be expected. That doesn't make them funny in any way, but that is to say that we do sense that there is a quite clear blueprint here, and it has to do with the Sirian light also connecting to you and these crystalline reconfigurations.
Thank you so much for that confirmation. I felt like it was something like that, but it's always a process of discerning what's what. So thank you, my deepest love. Thank you. Thank you.
Our deepest love to you and blessings on your path. And we will just add that this is in many ways why we also find it so helpful to move into these types of communications with humankind, because we understand that your separate experiences are often far more confused, and then you use other people outside frames or our energy coming through a vessel to sort of confirm the things that have, well, created a bit of a mess, and then just realizing that, well, this one goes there and this one goes there, and then everything is in order. And how lovely is that?
It is lovely.
Thank you. Okay, there's another question here from the group chat. It's from, I just lost it there. Sorry about this. It's from Chris. It says, greetings, friends. Oh, it's not my days. I'm losing the game.
Oh, but we reside in infinity. We have plenty of time. Everything is working out.
Okay. Chris says, greetings, friends. I was wondering whether I could get some help for an issue in my upper back. Oh, I'm calling the angel. Okay, around my shoulder blade. I'm in pain and some relief would be highly welcome if possible. Many thanks.
Yes. We thank you for posting this question, both to Sailesh, who read it out loud, and to Chris, who contributed it, because what it is pointing to is, we will go general first. It's the idea that a lot of energy is moving through your systems, and all of you here have been experiencing this in different ways, but indeed it is a sort of universal process, that there is a lot of pain. And well, notice that your shoulder is also the thing that makes you active in the world. And so this pain stems much for you from suppressed action. That is the feeling that you somehow also need to bunch yourself together to remain into a tight knot. And we do believe, for instance, in the sport of boxing, that this is what some boxers will do when they're up against the ropes, literally. It is that they will sort of cover themselves and make themselves into this huddle. And what you want to do is to counteract this movement, and counteract it emotionally and also physically. Well, we are advising you as a basic physical exercise to, you lie prone on your stomach, and then you extend. You do this with both arms successively, but you do it with one first and then the other. Then you extend, let's say, the left arm out on the side with the hand flat on the floor, and then you roll upwards. So you are sort of tipping over on your shoulder, and this should offer you a stress that you can regulate this type of lying stretch, and this will simply be helpful for you, because there are tensions that need to be worked out here. But then there's a paradox in your case, because you would also do well to, well, actually train this area more. And this, you might actually get into push-ups, what would be something that would help you. And that we are sure that someone has taught you. It's a very basic human exercise, because it's a very helpful exercise of actually concentrating on the strength of this area and thereby expanding it. But you might also do well in punching things. That is, if you could get a boxing bag, that would be helpful, but also just punching pillows. And then this might feel a little crazy, but to squawk your arms, so actually make yourself as wide as possible, and then to flap like a bird. And it might be better with forwards and backwards rather than upwards and down, this way. And this will sort of help to force your heart center open. And we are very willing to offer healing to this, but as a general reminder to everyone, what our friend here is also saying is that if channelers were miracle workers, they would be far wealthier. That is, if you could call up someone who's talking to the angels and then say, can you get the angels to rid me of my disease? Then that would be a very, very powerful practice. And that is why all we can do in these instances is to sort of establish the link and facilitate the offer of our energy to pour into it. But reality is constructed in a way where you also have free will, and we would do nothing not to respect this. But this means that, well, the more you allow yourself to actually change, to go into that place where you're like, now the pain of being a caterpillar has grown so large that I need to become a butterfly. So the more you can go into the feeling that this restrictive sense within your body is actually something that's there to teach you a lesson, and that, and when you release that lesson, which is in many ways a lesson of pain not serving you, and move into these healing modalities, there we can really offer a lot of our energies to clear it up quickly. So that is the encouragement, and you do have our love and blessings, and we are sending this healing beam your way. Hope that it reaches your shoulder. We know it will, and there a light is building and concentrating. So look for almost a fuzzy, blooming feeling, something that might feel like small ants are easing up your muscle tensions, and try to grow this within you, because that is our energy being offered to you. Our love and blessings, healing to you, friend.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, we have another question here from the room. It's by Veritas. And he asks, when will benevolent ET forces assist humanity in the fight against negative ET tyranny on Earth at this time? And can you please also inform the Sirians, he says, they are welcome to visit me in the astral plane, and a sign in the heavens will be appreciated. Namaste.
Yes. Namaste to you. Well, again, moving in reverse order as we often prefer, that we are very happy to join you in the astral. And we do sense that. Look for our star, and then look for diverging patterns. That is, you may sense, and you may almost be in doubt of whether or not this is an optical illusion, or yes, have to blink your eyes and check again. But you may sense that there's a type of pulsing field around the star of Sirius that sort of bends your perception of the space coming around it. So this idea that light bends, which you have also discovered in your theory of relativity, but that it's actually being sort of distorted. So there is like a gravitational pull from the star when you perceive it, where other light seems to be drawn in. This will be a type of sign in the heavens, but it will have a quite unique expression for you in your experience. Then in the astral, we are very happy to help you, and you can envision yourself. This is a good exercise for everyone. That is, build your fortress of solitude. And we believe it's an image that's quite prevalent in the mind of the vessel, but it's from the old Superman movies, where he has this crystal palace on, we believe it might be the North Pole or the South Pole or somewhere, where he sort of goes to reconnect to his inner self, his true identity as a galactic traveler and star being. And so the more you can build this crystalline grid around yourself in the astral, the easier it is for us to come into that space and to commune clearly. And there, if you have an invitation or an invocation or a prayer of something immediate that you would like us to join in on, that would also be a little easier for us to connect there, or a little easier for you to connect to us in this space. And then moving into the cosmic struggle, well, we are assisting you now, we believe, and it may not look like much, but what we are doing here is we are growing the basic frequency of the space around everyone who partakes in this communication and in your physical bodies. And we are sort of helping attune that influx of very disparate but very high frequency energies into a circuitry that's conducive for sustaining yourself in these higher vibrations. And that's very much what we are engaged in. And so it would be cool in many ways if we could bring out our star cruisers and just start destroying the stuff that you wouldn't like. But from our perspective, that you don't necessarily like, or that's of a negative character. But from our perspective, that would only strengthen these negative energies, because that would mean that we face them head on. And when you face negativity with the intent to destroy it, you're actually growing the power of that negativity, because it is, in a sense, the destructive force itself that just wants to move things into entropy, that wants to keep them separate in experience. And so it's easier for us to move into human consciousness and begin to reconfigure your light grids, and begin to reconfigure your physical lives, your attitudes, the questions you ask, the work you do with yourself. And they're just experiencing how darkness in all its unconscious influence gains less and less hold in your lives. And that is something that we are dealing with. So what's important for all of you is that, returning to another movie image, it is that you remember that the Wizard of Oz is just the man behind the curtain. That is, if you see all these apparitions of authority, or people who seem to exert a negative influence, or who has disproportionate power but doesn't wield it responsibly, then notice that none of these people would be striving for this if they didn't somehow have a sense of their own powerlessness. And once you turn your attention to that place, they really lose most of their capacity to influence you. That is, if we take the most direct manifestation of authority, for instance, and that might be, well, a policeman. Then notice, if you would, that this person is also a total psychological being, and there were certain things, certain traumas, certain hurts, certain armaments, we could say, in their development that drove them into a place where this was how they wanted to engage with the world. And this is playing a complex role, because of course it might also be helpful for you to sometimes have a representative of the collective who tells individuals that who are out of line that there are some consequences to this, or you can't break these rules because those are important. But of course, you also know that this authority becomes something expressed in the uniform, for instance, that's sort of a code and an intelligence of itself that operates by enforcing certain rules that you didn't necessarily sign up for directly. And here it's very, very helpful to sort of remove that person from the authority and then say, well, all the authority that I experience here is something that person who's in the uniform is pouring into it, and that I'm pouring into it with my expectations and of them, and my acknowledgement of the fact that they wield a type of power. So the more you can simply recognize, well, the policeman or any authority figure, and that might also be the higher ups, as sort of also, well, babies that have grown to size, but that are still wounded and confused and don't quite know what they're doing, but are just playing the game, that if they can get you convinced that they know what they're doing and they have power and they're in control, then they can feel all right about, well, their life also being uncertain, and the certitude that they have to die and leave everything they know behind, and all those things that make human life difficult. So the more you can focus on, well, yes, let's take a very authoritarian leader such as Vladimir Putin, the more you can focus on this person also having been a baby and a small boy and someone who grew up under harsh circumstances, and have all these types of agendas also out of a degree of unconsciousness, rather than he's working from a degree of super consciousness where he's always anticipating who he needs to keep down and what rules need to be enforced. But it's more of a survival mechanism that has gotten out of hand. So this might be a way of really empowering yourself, and thereby taking the power that you project onto these negative influences or powerful individuals back into your own sphere, because you do hold all the power. Indeed, in your heart sits the power to create entire galaxies, should you choose to do so.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, I have a question for me, and then we'll go to the YouTube chat room because there's lots of questions coming in there. For me personally, I have decided to embark on the path of non-duality. And what I would like to know is what your perspective is on this, and any suggestions that you may have for someone who wants to pursue this path. Thank you.
Yes. And as you were also talking about in the Zoom room before this thing went live, there is a type of, let's say, auspiciousness, or again, this word, the augur, the type of premonition that comes forward in you dealing with this. So many of you are turning towards this, and it is exactly because you are realizing that, well, the mind always operates in narratives. That is stories or words you tell yourself. And these, as you know, any good story needs a villain or at least a love interest or something that's not you, that you need to pursue or be in opposition to or vanquish or any of these elements. And this is a very helpful instrument of telling your life story and telling yourself a new story. But we could say above that mental state, there is the non-dual state, which is a recognition of spiritual truth that is more emotional. We could use the word telepathetic. It's more of a total experience. And the weird thing is that you actually access this by negation. So the more we believe the Sanskrit saying might be neti neti, which means not this, not this. So the more whenever you feel you are being carried away by thought, whenever you feel that there is something that is sort of lures you into a narrative or a story you have, then say, well, this is not it. This is not it. This is a lesser manifestation of the divine. This is an idea being brought forward, or a figure or a model or a map of something, but it is not sublime reality. Sublime reality is what is constantly playing out behind those things and giving birth to these things. And non-duality is a very helpful way of approaching this, which positively could be phrased unity consciousness. Because once you try to reach for the whole, it slips out of grasp. But once you sort of just reject all its manifestations in latching onto them, then you connect to this higher sense of unfolding. And you may actually sense it physically as a type of pearly, fluorescent, shimmering energy, this feeling of light playing off the waters, for instance, or these other wonderful spectral phenomenon that you may observe. It has this quality of shining its light through to you, and yet it has absolutely no quality. And that is why you can only pick it up in these tentative experiences. And when you try to phrase it into words, the easiest way to describe it is often as it is done, for instance, in a lot of Southeast Asian poetry, but to point to the thing, the mood that's somehow not there. And so a beautiful poem, for instance, and we don't remember, but it's from the Edo period in Japan, but where the poet says, well, in Kyoto, I hear the cuckoo and long for Kyoto. And this is this weird thing of what is it that's present in that longing? Well, it's actually the presence of the great release. And the more you then do not attach that longing to anything, but just simply let it be a type of flowering into the sublime reality constantly surrounding you, the better you can move into this. And you can simply use that mantra of denial, and you can use it in English as well, just going not this and not this, not this.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's go to the chat room now. This next question what this gentleman's done is put question within question. So I'll leave it to you to answer what you would like. It's by Yoken. Hello, beautiful spirits and humans. What is the Big Bang? Big Bang exactly? What was before? What caused it? Did it even happen? Thank you. I'll leave it to you to answer.
Yes, it's the big questions that are being turned up here, and we want to extend our love to you for bringing them forward, because no, it's not that we do not comprehend these things, but there is a limitation again in the logical and semantic structures of language as you know it, that makes it very hard to express the mystery of the non-dual state, or makes it very hard to express the origins of the universe within language. And that is also why so many of your ancient cultures prefer to use symbols and depersonalize stories instead. That is, if you tell a story about how the gods came to be or how they created the universe, you are sort of playing around with eternal universal forces rather than playing around with, well, the story of who I am and how I got here, because that's inherently confusing. And if you were to tell that story in full, you would have to tell the story of the entirety of the cosmos, because indeed it's all those things that have gone before you that amount to you in this moment being here, observing this thing with your mind and developing yourself in a process as you are. So this is not to talk circles around it, but from our perspective, time is more of a cycle. And so this is the very helpful way of thinking about the Big Bang, and seeing as we were in the frame of Hinduism, notice that this cosmology has in many ways thought of with the kalpas and the yugas and these world systems of changing orders and energies, that there is a type of contraction, retraction taking place. And notice that this pattern is also ingrained within a lot of biology. It's, for instance, with the trees in winter in the temperate zone, but it's also, well, in your heartbeat, in the way that you blink, in your mouth opening and closing, and of course, most markedly, in the fact that you take in breath and you exhale breath. So there is a type of renewal and sustaining and destruction within everything, which is also expressed in those three cosmic forces of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. But what we aim to here is that what came before the Big Bang, seen temporally in your perspective, would be a universe that's slightly different from this one, but much the same, although the degree of complexity has been altered a little bit here. So that is, there are a greater emotional bandwidth available to ascended species within this cosmos compared to the last one. But it's quite minute differences that would be hard to discern from if you didn't have, well, the sensibility of the angels, or these very, the minute sense of energetic flows. So this is one aspect, that it's a reiterating cycle. And so, yes, did it even happen? Well, from our point, it wasn't necessarily a material perspective. It was rather the idea that in the former universe, everything had been spiritualized, that is unified within its own being of the cosmos as in its entirety, that it concentrated all its disparate parts into one element of connectivity. And this element of connectivity sort of, we could say, sucked in the expanse of that universe and then exploded it into the creation of a new one. And this is sort of the cycle that keeps repeating, and that you indeed repeat on a more minute scale by you also coming into greater and greater connectivity and then dissipating, and then your energy body moving forward and onward, and you're incarnating in a more complex structure, or in a in a higher density band, we could say. So we do not remember if we answered all questions within this question, but we do sense that these are the perspectives that are helpful to have on this idea.
Thank you very much. Yes, I know it was a bit cheeky asking 4 questions in one. Right. Okay. The next one is from Beauty Joanne 03. She's asking 2 questions, but I'll read just one of them. She talks about what is going on in my head. It feels like out of balance, and my heart, it feels like it's blocked. Please, I need help, healing, if possible. Thank you.
Yes. First off, we will transmit this beam to you. Offering you to take this healing into your heart and there plant this vibration as a type of seed and see it sprout. See, we were offering, and we will refer you to the answer we gave our friend Laura before, because indeed what you are experiencing is some of the same symptoms that are manifesting collectively. That is, the crystalline grid on the right side of your head is getting upgraded, and you may feel these spells of dizziness, and that's exactly because this anchor. So if you were, for instance, to envision these types of trees that someone grow in bottles, or where they're not planted in the soil and they only receive few nutrients from the ones that are added to the water where the root system is, at some point these trees grow more and more unhealthy because they need to actually be rooted down into the soil. And this is indeed what's blocking you. It's the fact that you're growing upwards, but it's not necessarily moving into that expanse of your heart, because here there are some trauma seated, which manifests itself as blocks. And so the best thing you can do, and we are offering all our healing and assistance in this, but it is actually we could call it a discipline of crying. So the more that you can allow yourself to, for instance, watch sad movies or whatever your preferred medium of reference is, or listen to sad stories, read sad books, but actually bring you into a state of sadness. Because once you really feel this sadness, and we sense if you move into this, it will pass quickly. It will pass within a week or so. That is, if you take a few days where you cry it out, so to speak, and you can induce this by reminding yourself of sadness, then you will be brought to the base feeling underlying this, and this will offer you a great release within your chest. So we offer you blessings in this, and we offer love and blessings to all of you in these beautiful paths you are taking. But we assure you that we confirm that much is being asked of you in these times, and for many of you it might seem like a tornado has been switched on inside you that is just disturbing everything. And this storm too shall pass, things will settle, and the more you surrender to the process, the faster it will go.
Thank you very much, Umlum. Okay, next one is from Nuaubi Sartop. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. If I did not, I apologize. And they ask, what messages do you have for me?
Yes, open and straightforward question. Well, we have the message that someone is trying to contact you, and you want to open that channel. So the more that you can, this is related to your big toe somehow, And the more you can allow for a certain fluidity in your feet, the more they will begin to speak with the energies that are moving below you in the soil. And here there are sort of these small loving hands of, it's like, it's also these bright-like spirits, but we sense it's very much connected to something ancestral as well. So there is a type of relaxing in your, well, in your groin and your hip area, in your thighs, in your knees and calves, in your ankles and feet, that will bring in this softness. And this will sort of allow you to reconnect to the ground. And here your ancestral spirits will begin to, well, tie you down, anchor you down in a helpful way. So in your case, it would actually be helpful to turn your eye towards your personal past. And that also means the personal past of your family, your genetic history, on how you got there. And notice there's something coming from this place that wants to reach you, and that will guide you forward.
Thank you. And Jim asks a very similar question. It's, are there any messages from my Sirian counterparts? Thanks, Mads.
Yes, and we thank him too. This is, well, the pattern here that's emerging from within the star, and this is 9D consciousness. So it means that we are more, as I am, Mumlu as well, that I am a type of communicator as well. And so what the thing that you are connecting to is in many ways the energy of the tinkerer or the machine builder, in this type of engineering template that you actually want to explore and expand upon. And here we see it has to do with sort of building these. Notice that your machines, though you build them in, of course, in materials such as metal, but they are still in many ways circuitries. They are processes where you move in one type of energy and then you pass it around, and then it emerges, put into a type of higher order, a type of object that you can use. And this is sort of the thing that you're being encouraged to play around with, because this is very strong in your archetype, having this pattern of placing things in certain spaces and then passing things through them. So we sense that you might actually want to, for some reason, the image that's being brought forward is a chemistry set, but it's sort of this idea of, well, of building this laboratory around you, building this whole of experiments around you, and then really have fun with it, but go to task with it, because this is something that your being is deeply longing for. So that is the message we have to you, and we send you our encouragements and our blessings on the exploration of this. But remember to have fun with it and just step back from it for a while if it's not rewarding you in the moment.
Thank you. Okay, the next question is from Jennifer Cabral. Dear Meds and Council, awareness about my sensitivity to volcanic activities happening around the planet makes me feel so vulnerable. How to create a positive relationship to planetary changes? I presume she's asking, how do I create positive relationship to these planetary changes?
Yes, and it's again this notice this patterning where you are actually very much drawn to more cosmological concerns within this forum, And this is very helpful to know that, well, as consciousness increases, and this has been very pertinent for the last generations of humankind, as consciousness and awareness of yourselves as global beings increase, there is also the opportunity, or we could say the risk of worries to increase. That is, of course, if you're just thinking about the ocean as those spaces above the place where you grew up, then you might not be thinking about overfishing, or you might not be thinking about the pollution of the oceans. But as soon as you have the awareness of you being alive on a globe with limited resources and limited expanses of space, wide as they may be, then there is this trouble presenting itself around the fact that you are somehow also a part of the system and therefore responsible for it. But what we encourage you to do in this global perspective is then to also move your sense of responsibility to the higher level. That is indeed, if it's, we could say, individual self-limited short-sightedness of individual self-interest, which does have its purpose. That's what drives the logic of the system you call capitalism, which has produced a lot of wealth for a lot of people and a lot of technological innovations. It essentially relies on the idea that a person following their private interest is somehow also benefiting the whole by bringing the products of that private interest and self-realization to the collective. And this is helpful. But of course, then there is what is known as the tragedy of the commons, the idea that there are also things such as the earth, which is a common thing that's being drained of resources to reward someone's personal interest. And here what you do is then, as you have already shifted your consciousness to being global beings, then you also shift your consciousness to aligning with how a global being would view this, because it has a far different time frame. So, and we know this might sound cynical, but Mother Earth doesn't really care that much if a volcanic eruption displaces some people from a village, or, well, even, let's say in an extreme case, that 1 million people were to die from it, because the human project can still go on for her. And these changes are, well, these are about as dramatic for her as having an upset stomach one day is for you. So can you align with this fact that there's an ever-flowing cycle within you and within the planet that you are a part of that is sort of looking to the interests of the whole of the species, of the whole of the atmosphere, of the whole of the biosphere, of the whole of the sustainability of these systems. And it sometimes has to move in ways that seem very impersonal or uncaring, but this is actually the experience that you want to align with when you are worried about this, because this is the only place where you can sort of solve it without having a sense of panic about it. And notice this increased sensitivity also speaks to your nature. We are addressing you individually here, Jennifer, but many of you may resonate with it. But it speaks to your nature as an earth healer. That is, you have come into this earth in many ways to show aspects of its nature, and also to show aspects of where the earth might be out of joint, so to say, or where humans might be out of joint with nature. And therefore, this concern is also a type of driving force within you. So as long as you let it be a fuel that fuels your benevolent intent to want to heal and restore and help, but without you feeling the burden of responsibility, because it is not your responsibility to set the earth right. It is the collective responsibility of human beings. And that is why all these awarenesses of problems precede you coming into a place where you humans are far more attuned to the collective needs of you as a species, and where you don't have this motivation of limited self-interest to the same degree, But as this happens in your personal lives, so it also happens on the levels of species consciousness. That is, you become aware of the problem, and then the problem perpetuates itself. And then you grow so frustrated with it that you realize that something needs to change. And then there is that sense of something, your higher self, reaching into life and changing it and allowing you to relinquish those things that were causing you problems before. But the awareness of the problem always comes before the solution, and that's the most painful place to be in, when those things have not yet reached each other, when you are aware but you don't resolve. But resolution is, to us, it's a natural part of the balance. So there is no problem that's being presented without it having a counterpart out there in unmanifested reality of its solution. And we send you our blessings and love in this as well. Yes, and we are just opening the eyes of the channel to check if we are still online and everyone is with us. So Sailisha, good man, are you here?
Hello? Hello?
Yes.
Can you hear
Can
me?
you hear her? Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect. Bringing back the Sirians.
Okay.
Greetings. Hello, dear friends.
Yes, hello. Okay. Communication problems. Right. Next question is from Seraphine Susan. She asks, can you tell me about my lifetimes as a Sirian and how I will be working with the Sirian collective?
Yes. Well, the lifetimes are very hazy in our collective memory. They are accessible, but because we have already merged into a place where we don't have individual lifetimes as such, but we have a collective existence instead. So the question is rather, well, if you begin to move into yourself, we would rather encourage some of these counterparts of yours or past existences to come forward on their own. And what you can do here is temple tapping. And this might feel quite stirring to you, but if you do this for 3 minutes and you can make a loud vibration, trying to bring it, well, you can move it all the way up through your spine, but the important thing is that it moves from your claviceps and then sort of, this is a description, but it sort of clings to your spine, and as it then moves into the pituitary and expands out into the brain. So while doing this tapping, you make the sound of it's essentially the part of the AUM or the Aum, the sacred vibration. And this is a place where you sort of open this astral reality to yourself. And we sense there is a story here because this is very present in our developmental history as healers, but that you might find that you were specifically connected to the healing professions in these lifetimes. So nudge, nudge, wink, wink. And this is also an encouragement for you to follow your excitement, because there is no pressure in you working with us. That is, we are very happy to work with anybody who meets us on our frequency range. And that means that they are already coming in from a very positive aspect. But you might want to experiment with, we use the term channeling, funneling, we would almost say, certain specific galactic frequencies. And they might be our frequencies, but we sense there's also other counterparts surrounding you that might want to offer their help in this. But that is, for instance, the idea of the magic wand. So something that you create a funnel intention into specific energies into, and then you can point it and there actually redirect the energy flow coming in to your entire body, out into your hand, and then concentrate it into this point of the magic wand. And it might not be magic wands. You can also use it when serving water to others, serving water to yourself. You can use it around rocks and crystals, or you can even do it with furniture or other things. But the magic wand is a good example. Even with potions, if that is your thing, you can work on bringing the guidance in from your counterparts on these aspects of how to create a potion and how to invest it with healing. So these are some of the prospects that we sense for you, and we bless you and send you very good luck and love on this journey.
Okay, thank you very much. The next question we have here is all from the YouTube. It's by Car1212 and asks, do you work with the wing makers Lyricus, Lyricus, teachers of the central race?
Well, they are unacquainted to the encyclopedia that's translating us, that is the knowledge of this human mind. So we are going by energy. And here we can say that, yes, this race is connected to us through the Galactic Council. They are sort of far removed from our part of the solar system. And we do not have any types of programs or, well, agendas unfolding, such as, for instance, our investment in mankind and the development that we are very invested in, along with a handful of other races. But we do have interactions, sit on committees together, we could say, in the Astral, or try to clear out things and align these energies. And what we sense is that this race is it's very oriented around growing sacred power centers, and by power we certainly do not mean domination, but we mean their ability to, they are still engaged very much in moving from this idea of power objects, but creating these vortices within the physical that can sort of create greater and greater power. And you can, moving in cycles as we are, think of one of these concentrations as a type of miniature Big Bang. So it's a way to implode space, and you will begin to discover, for instance, around your black holes at some point, that many of these have been artificially created by higher races who sort of removed a lot of the energy from that place originally, and thereby created a type of vacuum that then made even more energy concentrate there, making it impossible for light to escape, but then also creating a type of bend in physical reality, which they can, well, use for, let's say, power, to make it clear in human terms, that is actually powering their devices, their ideas, their progress.
Thank you. Okay, the next question is from Remnock. They ask, recently a project was funded to revive ancient mammoth DNA by splicing with modern elephant DNA. Can you give a prediction of success of adding large mammals back into the habitats that need them? Thank you.
Yes, it's an interesting question, because it speaks very much to your ability as human beings to become creators. And, well, notice how novel this thought was from, we believe, for instance, in the movie Jurassic Park, which was from 1993, is what we are scanning here. And this was, it was a strange or a novel idea to the wider public. This idea that human beings could genetically engineer animals from the past, and then actually begin to place them in ecosystems. And of course, what you are doing is you are not necessarily recreating these animals, but you are creating hybrid species. So you take things you know from the elephant, and then you sort of buff it up with mammoth DNA. And so these projects, we sense they will begin to bear fruit, but it will be approximately in 20 years. There are partially some kinks you have to work out about, well, not only the genetic sequencing, but also quite physically. Well, how do you grow if all you have available as a surrogate is an elephant mother? Then there is, of course, the quite literal physical problem that how do you grow an elephant species that's too big to actually be given birth to by that mother? And those are some things that you would need to work out, because this may mean that you will have to develop that thing which is very expressed in human beings, which is called neoteny. Well, the idea that prolonged infantile features long into the growing stages. And so you will actually have to make mammoths that come out more unfinished than a mammoth would originally. So this is more speaking to the general field, which you might find interesting. But we are then also informing you that what is necessary for this is also habitat protection. So you won't derive much joy from having mammoths in nature. There may be places in Siberia where they could live, but maybe also in northern Canada. But in many places, you will also have to move into the space that, well, actually moving back to the realization that you then let the animals be the guardians of the forest, and that these forests where these animals live, it's not necessarily for you to regulate, but that they actually become a part of the free ecosystem. But there is great prospects to this. And you may, for instance, notice how both the American and the European bison, both brought almost to extinction, have sort of re-emerged, and if not restabilized, then at least grown their populations to levels where, well, they are back to being wild creatures. And this speaks to the fact that you are also moving your consciousness towards something where nature exists for nature's sake, and not necessarily for you to have meat or pretty places to go to or funny animals to look at, but simply because it's good for nature to be. So this is a very interesting question, because it touches practically upon so many of the things that you are doing. And if you were to speak to Jennifer's sensitivity around volcanic activity, this is a very positive image of aligning more with global consciousness, because that's also realizing that you and an individual, and even as a team or a project, you can perhaps learn to grow the mammoths, but in the end, it will sort of be your surrender into how they then regulate themselves in an environment that determines how this project unfolds. But you are definitely moving there, and it will be very interesting to see the fauna, wink, wink again, that so many of you will leave behind. Well, people here who are present, who have been born into generations after the industrialization of so much of the planet, and have been born into more of these artificial landscapes, that you will be surprised that you will die from such a bountiful earth that is also covered with wide expanses of human-free territory.
Thank you. Okay, just to let if you could let Mads know, we're coming close to 90 minutes now, and I have 4 questions on YouTube and 2 questions here back in the room. So
he's saying that would be perfect if the 6 questions could be the 6 questions, then it seems like very good timing for him, he is saying.
Okay, all right then. Okay, let's go back to the room and ask those 2 questions. Go back. They will go back. Right. The second question here is from Chris, and says, "Greetings. Could I please get some information on the Sirian DNA infusion that I received a few years ago, and how can I activate and benefit from it? Thank you for any insight into this.
Yes, this is a beautiful question because it speaks also to the fact, well, of your own part in relating to our energies and to have these upgrades take place. So the idea of the DNA infusion is, it's again speaking in the language of genetics. It might not be a bad way to think about it, but what's rather going on is that we have already coded, that was in the creation of mankind and working this out, we have already coded a lot of our energies into you. And you also respond quite strongly, many of you, to the energy from our star. This is a place where it activates. But at the same time, there are loads of other strains that you could also activate and that become active as you live your life, choose your attention and everything. And so the more general advice that we offer is we would use the image of the Nigerian prince here in relating to channeling. And we are of course not speaking of a true Nigerian prince, but we are speaking to one of these online internet scams of your electronic modern culture that's quite famous. And that's the idea that someone says, well, there's something positive going on for you here, but you don't have immediate access to it yourself. You will just have to do these things, because the very point where it becomes important is when you have access to it yourself. So if someone promises you that you have $3 million in the bank, but you don't have access to them, then you don't have $3 million in the bank. But there might be the potential, whether or not can you then trust this figure and can you move on and work with them. And in the case of the Nigerian prince scam, this is generally not advised. We would say in the case of the Sirians, this is generally advised. So what you received was kind of a, let's say, an open mail from us that sort of examined, that said, hey, you have all these things that you can tap into if you want to. We just need your cooperation to do it. And there you then have to do the work, because how it has manifested in you, the activation of your Sirian DNA, it has been through an increased sense of hypersensitivity, for instance, an increased sense of, well, weird things happening to you, but it hasn't quite been matched up with your own agency around this. So that is, you really need to establish that connection to the bank. And because all these things are offers, that they are never forced upon you, at least not from benevolent entities. We are that. And therefore, what you really need to do is to establish a type of connectivity practice. And so meditation is helpful, but invocation is also helpful. If you were to take up regular swimming or running or any type of sort of monotonous movement of your body where you could lose your mind, this would also be helpful. But these are sort of the ways that we are looking to connect to you, because we are really wanting to reach in and reconfigure and help your body thrive, and for some of the pains that you were mentioning in your last question to dissipate. But it is sort of you who has to respond to the phishing mail and get, so you do the extra steps, and then we can show you, we can actually give you access to the money in the bank. And that's what we're really offering all of you, but you specifically in this situation. So please do connect. We are so much looking forward to it. And there is much healing and also much love and wisdom to be gleaned from us.
Thank you, Umlum, sorry. Okay, the next question really is from Kevin, who's not here, but he just popped it on YouTube, and that's the one I'm asking on my behalf as well, because it's pretty good. And there's a couple other people on YouTube who seem to resonate with this question. and it goes as follows. Could you speak of the importance of keeping our joints mobile and the energy vortices that reside in the knees, hips, elbows, wrists, shoulders, and neck, etc.? Thank you very much.
Yes. Well, your joints are in many ways mobile. We will turn this around to say that mobility is the natural state of your body, and so fluency is the natural state of your body. And what's so remarkable about the human body when you compare yourself to other beings on this planet is the type of plasticity that you have, that your mind can configure your body to be fluent in all kinds of ways. And so you even have contortionists who can do extreme things which seemingly to most people seem almost unnatural, because they unlock these places that are locked for most of you. So that is to say that when you are keeping the mobile, you are actually doing an unlocking process of something that has grown to be locked. And so what often happens is, and this is the type of separation consciousness that moves into the physical experience, it is that your bodies tighten up and they grow older, and they also take some wear and tear, and then often you will concentrate in one point. So what often happens is that if there is trouble, and how human beings often respond to trouble is by tightening themselves, by locking themselves. And so, for instance, with the sensor in the neck, that is, if you feel something is wrong in your head, or there's wooziness and dizziness, a natural response might be to tighten up and then lock this sensor in the neck. And there, this energy has really no place to go but to move into the tension of the muscles, and there to stiffen or even cramp up in some cases. And so the more you can realize that these are cataracts, we believe the term might be these whirlpools that occur in rivers such as the Nile, for instance. That is, it's actually a place where the continual flow of energy through you meets a type of translation causeway, a type of portal. And this is this energy confluence. So notice that these are all placed in places where there are actually opposite forces exerting their pressure on them. And how does nature resolve harmonically the pattern of opposing forces? Well, it creates a spiral pattern. So where the force of gravity in your head presses down on your neck, and the muscles in your neck and your back are still keeping your head erect, here there needs to be this type of confluence, this harmonic cataract of energy. And so this happens again when your upper and your lower arms, or it happens between the calves and the thighs and the knees. All these places, there are different pressures exerting themselves. And so the more you can know that there's a type of circulation, we're getting this image of, for instance, in a system of dams, where then we believe that a vessel might be raised by certain sluices being shut off and others being opened. And so it might give passageway. So if you can think of this not as a place that you need to tighten up or maintain, but actually as a place that you relax, and then know that as you relax it, these opposing energies, they will try to harmonize themselves naturally. And that's why it's so helpful with so many of these positions of perfect circuitry. Of course, one of the more famous ones is called, at least in some traditions of yoga, the Yoga Mudra, which is the lotus pose, and then with arms crossed and attached to the feet, which create a complete harmonic circuitry within the body. But simply folding in Anjali Mudra, for instance, or sitting in the butterfly pose where you put your feet against each other, or flapping your knees from side to side, or well, yes, swinging your, also making an effort to swing your legs behind you so the hip joint moves in both directions. These are all ways where you naturally sort of make this energy flow balance itself again.
Thank you. Okay. Now to the YouTube. Question from Sophia Zhu. Dear Syrian Council, do you have any healing advice for me and the collective at this time? Thank you.
Yes. It's again, and we are sorry if this is generic advice, but it is again the idea of surrender, because there is so much healing being offered to you by your surroundings, by the integrity of your energy field, by your constitution in and of itself. And the more you align with this fact that there is a universal process that you are not in charge of, but that you are the receiver of, and that's indeed your higher self flowing in, the better you will feel, actually. That is, it's a healing process in itself, because so much of the tension stems from these, we use this neutrally and kindly, we love you so much, but neurotic patterns that human beings develop around what they're feeling. And so an example in the extreme, for instance, if you ask a person in general, but in particular a hypochondriac, to describe how their big toe is feeling, then just naturally turning the attention to it will begin to generate some sort of tension or unease in that part of the body. So it's actually, the more you can defocus from certain parts of your body, the more you can connect to the infinite flow of restorative energy that's constantly being offered to you. And of course, there is an element of wear and tear, of you being physical beings and having the experience of, we know at least one person who's listening will recognize this advice, but having the experience of not being able to run a mile at the same pace in your 30s as you did in your 20s, and especially not in your 40s as you could in your 20s, and so forth and so on. So that's partially, of course, an element, but it's also best recognized and dealt with by surrender, by allowing the process to be, because as long as you are alive, there is a restorative healing energy within you. And it's one of the things that we build in, that we are very proud of in human physiognomy, is your quite unique ability between the beings of this planet to actually regenerate yourselves from very harsh surgeries, ailments, diseases, things that would kill almost all beings, or at least, well, maim them for life, so to speak, to really impede them for the rest of their lives. Human beings can recover from. And that's because you have this energy constantly being flowed into you that is very restorative. And you are meant to, revealing a bit of your galactic purpose, you are meant to work as healers in your higher manifestations in the higher dimensions as humanity, for a lot of these emotions that have been stirring and that have been difficult and that haven't been able to find themselves in other parts of the galaxy and the universe. Here you will play a pivotal part. So we hope that this partially sheds some light on healing, but also underscores your ability to heal yourselves by surrendering.
Thank you. Okay, the next question is from Tricha Source. I had an awakening August 2020, and my meditations turned to visions. They have not returned to normal, but I shifted, so that's probably why I still do not know my origin. Would you happen to know? Well,
it's again this type of narratives or or where to point it in linear consciousness, which is where you approach it when you speak of origin. And we have been returning to this theme today, the idea that, well, in many ways, the Big Bang is taking place right now. So this is another element of physicality that you shouldn't trouble your minds with. But the idea, we believe Buddhism may call it kalapas, but the idea that existence is constantly sort of flickering on and off like a light switch or a transistor. So this idea that, well, you are constantly being destroyed, created, destroyed, created, destroyed, created, but it takes place within splits of split seconds. And it's not really a temporal process, but that's a way to think about it. And here you are sort of recreated anew. So your origin is already right here. Then your origin also emerges from the creation of the Most High Source, which saw itself in all its perfection and then separated itself into rays or emanations or beings. And then through all these processes of time and history and space, then you became you, finding yourself in this moment. We would also venture to say your origin is, well, that of a human mother. That we believe that's a quite safe bet to make. And then we would also say that your origins are in many ways connected to, well, we are getting the Pleiades here. And again, we believe it's the star, is it called Alcyone? This is a place you may want to look into. But notice if you are already having, so this is partially also to underscore both to you and to everyone, that from our perspective, all these are your origins simultaneously. So it's also from which perspective we view the creation of you, so to speak. But notice if you are already having these visions, then be patient with it, because you can direct these with your intention. And if you really needed to know the full story of who you are, it would already be available. And it is already available to you as you do the slightly larger scale flicking on and off of the light switch. That is, you die from a body and then you assume a new one. And in these intermediate moments, you also remember fully who you are and where you came from and where you are going. So just notice that these visions are a sign that you are on the path and that things are being revealed to you in the pace that your higher self prefers. And our love to you, all of you going through this process, our assistance is here and our guidance as well.
Yeah, thank you. Just two more questions left because we're close to an hour and 3/4 now. Okay, this one's from Yana D. Hi, everyone. I believe I released the separation anxiety recently. Do you have suggestions how I become one, recuperating the hurt selves with trauma that I did not want to look at?
Yes. If we may give you some happy news, it is that you are already one. So there's actually no becoming, because this is what you are. And becoming are all the things that you sort of play out around the fact of the unity of your being. But we are aware that in human experience, there is this element of feeling like you have separate parts, that you are in time, and one day you are more connected and one day you are not. But what you do is that we sense in your case that again, this type of creation of a narrative would be helpful. So the more you can journal, and here we actually sense that it would be helpful for you to doesn't necessarily need to be a diary, though there might be a helpful ritual in you writing down things about yourself every day. But that is, go back and examine some of those feelings. And every time there is a feeling, or every time you have the opportunity to examine a feeling or an unwanted state coming up, then sit down with your journal, or it's helpful to have it collected in one book, because there you sense you are writing your own story of completion, we could say. But sit down here and associate. Where does this emotion come from? When did I experience it the first time in my life? When has it been repeated? Who were the individuals that I sort of connect this emotion to, or I experienced it with the most frequently? And doing all of these things and then collecting them in a book that you don't ever have to read again. You just know that these are this is the separate story of me. It's over there, and I have went through these things. And you will probably notice it by the fact that you don't notice it as much. So there will be a point where you go, oh, I haven't thought about being upset in that way for a while. Well, I must be doing better. And that's the very weird thing, that when you're doing better, it often reveals itself as an absence of problems that you then notice when you come slightly into problem consciousness again. But just know that you are doing very well, and we congratulate you on shedding this and purging yourself from these emotions. So the process is underway, and you have our blessings and love in this.
I thank you. Okay, I slightly misled you. I've got one from the Zoom room question and one from YouTube. I hope you don't mind.
We don't.
Okay, the one from the Zoom chat room is from Arson. And he says, it's my birthday and I feel very lonely. Will I get to meet more of my soul family soon?
Well, yes, happy birthday to you, our friend. We would say first. So we are sending you warm congratulations, because notice we have been speaking so much about creation. And indeed, what is a birthday but the celebration of the creation of you? And let's not split hairs about when a human being is created, but say that, well, once you emerge from the birth canal, you are definitely here for better or worse. And here it's just helpful for you to commemorate this, because this offers you the ability to finish a cycle. And what you might want to do today, as our specific advice, is to do something nice for yourself. And that's a reminder, and it becomes a very powerful reminder on this birthday, because birthdays both remind you that you are, well, a separate being that has a specific point where you were born, and nobody else shares the exact same space-time coordinates as you do. So that's unique in that way. But it's also, of course, celebrating your connectivity to people you're surrounded by. And this often happens then as people get older, that it becomes sort of a more harrowing experience to feel that you have really been pushed into this world, and here you still are feeling kind of disconnected and disjointed and not quite content. So what you do is you take this love that you have within you and you turn it towards yourself on a day like this. So use this to be nice to yourself. And if you have trouble or meet blocks in this, then go out and be nice to somebody else, or find a homeless person on the street and give them $1, or do something that just reminds you that there's a type of love alive within you. And the rest of the things will follow. See, time for us, of course, is a different medium. So we don't have the sense of impatience that's normal for human beings. But we do understand that this is an impatient feeling. But just know that as soon as the longing is there, then the object is there as well. So what you seek is seeking you. And what you can do is that you can choose to become more proactive. So the more you show yourself and really demonstrate who you are, and using a term, letting your freak flag fly, then the easier it will be for people to be like, oh, this guy, he's a part of my soul tribe. There's a connection. There's a connection here. And this is perhaps better, because from our perspective, it would be, well, it would be helpful for us to let you know that of course it's coming, and that you are young, and that this thing will grow up around you, and you had to have the contrast experience. But it's not good for us to give you a time frame, because there are things that you need to shed, and a lot of it has to do with sort of self-hatred and passivity, that are energies that you want to shed and then replace with a type of, we can actually say, self-gratulation, happy birthday again, but also with a type of creativity, of activity that's growing within you. So try to turn your focus towards this, and then yes, and then we know it's also difficult because we are coming through another Libra at the moment, and then we just know it's often difficult for Libras to have this sense of empowerment that you would, for instance, connect to a sign such as Capricorn, like, or Aries, or Aries was the one he was thinking about. So this more forceful energy, and that is also allow yourself to have this type of more adjustable, we could say almost quixotic personality, because that's also an element. But it doesn't mean that you have to wait around for things to happen. It just means that you are more one to put impulses into the world, and then be careful. Well, take heed of how they are responded to, because there will be signs and small openings from people emerging into your life as you progress. And so rather than sending you our blessings, we wish you a happy anniversary of the emergence from the birth canal.
Thank you. And this last question from the YouTube is from Christy Clark. Dear friends, I continue to have beautiful orbs around me. I sense they are angels. Can you please explain what is happening? I am connected to kin, K-I-N, but I would like your perspective.
Yes. And do listen to Ken in the advice that you are given here, because what we sense is that many of them are in an angelic nature, and the others are kind of benevolent, and then some of them are more of a natural spirit kind, but they're kind of showing up in all the colors of the rainbow, which is a good sign, because this it has to do, we would have been speaking about the crystalline grid, but it actually has to do with that halo construction that's taking a place around you. That is, you have sort of moved your consciousness into quite an otherworldly place. And from this place, there is this luminescence growing. And right now it might seem as dots, but they will emerge more into, as the years progress, more into completed energy fields. And these energy fields, you can begin to interact with your attention and your consciousness in different ways. So we sense that there's already so much information hiding there for you, and that you can connect to it yourself. So we also don't want to spoil the surprise, but these are very benevolent phenomenon that you are describing, and indeed there are some angelic influences.
Okay, thank you. That is all. Do you have any final messages for us before you leave?
Yes, we would like to say that healing is flowing in, and with this healing there comes a stirring of the organism, much as the reaction of fever is actually a healthy reaction to something being wrong in your body. And so be patient. And it's easy for us to say because we are on the other side of the veil in this, but we also know that it's helpful that we and so many other beings coming through so many different mediums at this point, that we remind you that what is going on is on a cosmic scale. It is of a grander order, and so many things are being dislocated so they can be placed into the right and connected spot again. And this is the reminder that we give you in some of these trying times that you are moving into reconnection. And this is a process in which you are supported. And delivering that message, we will bestow upon you some vibrations and leave you with a blessing. And so in this space, there is light moving in, and through the window panes of your eyes, you see light filling your experience. You see more of your internal self becoming flooded with an external, warming, kind, benevolent, healing, life-bringing force. And this is the light of you, the light of your true self that is merging into your experience and offering itself in a dance of connectivity. Therefore, I, Mumlu, as I have presented myself this day, coming to you as a representative of the Sirian ninth-dimensional collective, I have enjoyed the love that we have shared here this day. I thank you for it, and I return it to you unconditional, unwavering, unbroken, in peace. Farewell.
Nice to have you back. It was fantastic.
Okay, I'm glad it seemed like a very positive development. So I have a very bright feeling, and it's so interesting with all the healing and cosmology and things being tied together. So glad if you also enjoyed it, then everything is in perfect order. They have a very sweet vibration, I feel. Just soft somehow is at least my impression.
Maybe you should bring the dragons in then, yeah, next time.
Yes, exactly. So let's get some hard confrontational energy. But I think I will mull over who it will be next time. The next Sunday, I have a ticket that says so that I'm flying to Copenhagen, so I can't. I can't do a live stream from the airport, but the 17th, come hell or high water, I will be coming to you from back from the north, in the north, from the north, and I'm looking very much forward to that. But again, just thank you for everyone for being here and for making these live streams so beautiful events. So I look very much forward to things to come. And again, a special thanks to you, Salish, for moderating it. It was really excellent.
All right, it was brilliant. I mean, every question YouTube got answered, which was fantastic, and everyone here from the chat room and we got a couple of them asking a couple of questions, so which was very good indeed.
Perfect timing. Like that's just wonderful, and so a lovely Sunday to you, whatever's left of it, wherever you are on the planet.
Okay, till next time. Thank you very much, Mads.
Thank you too, Salish,
and the rest of you. Thanks.